Hmm. All right. Hello again, Internet. It has been a little bit. Today, I will finally be working on that personal project thing I've put at the bottom of every single stream plan. I think most of them, at least. Um, as usual, I have made a little stream plan thing. Um, on the left is the project. I'm going to start by just reading through the code because I started this like 3 months ago. Actually, I think at this point it's like 4 months. Uh, yeah. Um, yeah, 4 months ago. And last time I actually worked on it was almost 2 months ago. So I do not remember really anything about it. Uh, so I do recall vaguely there being a problem. So let's just go here. Not what I'm trying to do. Vim test. Woolard. Sure, I don't care. Um, so basically what the program is, if you can't tell by the name, uh, it's meant to be a like LAN file sharing thing. I know there's like FTP and SFTP and rsync or whatever, but I wanted to learn how to do something like this. It has turned out to be much much harder than I had expected. Um, I also had a lot of ideas for it, if you can't tell by the header files. Um, the two worst ones are probably going to be those. However, I need to figure out the serialization and the actual packet format because I will yeah, I'll just show what happens because it's not. Oh, that's great. Um, da, da, da. Right. So I'm gonna need two terminals for this. Um, so we have a server. I'm just gonna. So I want to move the test file to this directory. And if you recall, oh my god, yeah, wrong command. I want cat. So it has that in it. And I guess for whatever. So it's 12 bytes. Now, yes, I want to make the file. We'll go localhost. 12 bytes, okay. 12 bytes in the buffer. It got it. Bytes sent 1014. If we LL, test is now 1014. And if I do that, I need to figure out what's going on with all this stuff as well. I'm fairly certain that doing the packet stuff will fix that, so that's the plan. At least I would like to make some progress on that. Yeah, it's not really much to say. Just have to reread all the code, which is awesome. I guess I can do that. So I'm fairly certain, oh my god, certain all my file handling stuff is fine, but I'll start there. Max file name length, file info, you give it a pointer to a file, pointer to a file name, and whether or not it is temporary. I shouldn't have cleaned out the thing. Oh my god. Okay. Make so yeah, so if you have a file that already exists in that directory, it creates a temporary file, gets the new info from the server, puts that in the temporary file, saves this, in this case, saves the original file name, deletes the original file, makes the temp file have that name, essentially replacing that. Is it worth trying to draw this out? Probably not. So yeah. And here, if we go into it, it will have nothing because it didn't put anything in there. So that's what that's for. Then we get the file name. Returns void, takes a string. So we, I guess, just direct set a variable. Open file, we give it the file pointer. And the file name. Replace temp. These are both. Yeah, open file just gives you the file structure for the file that you opened. Obviously, replace temp is a boolean, so that's just whether or not it failed to replace it, and you give it. Why do you give it 2 strings? And then this is checking user permissions, so you can't access sudo things. You give it a file name, and then I'm not sure what type is, and it returns true or false whether you have permissions. So if I do that, oh my god. Do I not know my own password? What's going on? Okay, so test is now root. So if I do this, client doesn't have permission. And then if I sudo it should interesting. If I remember correctly, that should have failed on the server side for accessing the permission. Okay. Let's try that in a different folder. Maybe just because of the temp file stuff. So sudo touch test. Test root read. Oh yeah, because the server only reads the file. So now that it can't read the file, permission denied server side. Yeah. Okay, so that works how I would think it would. So let's actually look at the code for that. 99 lines, it's pretty short. Include file handling. We make a file structure. I tried to originally do that in the header file, but apparently that's bad practice, and it doesn't let you do that because if you include that in multiple files, like that header, it will create a shadow declaration or whatever. So we pass it a string. Wait, what's going on here? I so can't read it. Yep, fair enough. Steer it. Yep. Um, file name must be at least one character. I think this is redundant. I just have that there for debug stuff. And then, well, it's not less. We set the thing. So, while it's not equal to the maximum file name length, which was 100, if we reach the end, the new line, we make it null terminated, so it's a valid string. This is the temp file name template, which has to have those X's for it to work. Open file, we give it a pointer to a file and the file name. By default, we don't want to create the file. And we open the file in read mode. If we can't, well, so if not, right. I'm not really sure why, but when I had it as that, it had the logic backwards. I guess I could like no, that's not what I wanted. Return value, return a file pointer, otherwise null. Yeah, I don't actually know why that has to be not, but it doesn't work without it. Do you want to create a file? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, duh. So if the file doesn't exist, do you want to create the file? And then obviously it's not a temporary file because it's not replacing anything. And then if it fails the permission, what the... I really don't know what that 0 is for. On success, all 0 is returned. On error, -1. So okay, so the 0 is we want it to be, we want the permissions, and it returns a Boolean. And then obviously okay, no. So the type is whether or not it's the server or the client. In this case, case 1, it's the server because we only care if we can read. Case 0, It's the client because we need to be able to read and write to files. Okay. That also looks terrible. Okay. So that's not too bad. So if the client doesn't have permissions, yep, then close the file. If it fails to create the temp file, exit. Otherwise, say what the temp file was, set the temp file name in the structure, and then open that. And then exit if you can't open the file, and then do that. Okay. And then yeah. So this one is really simple. We take the temp file and the file name. We copy the file name. We delete the original file and then exit or return false if we can't. Why is that not equal to 0? What is the return value here? Yeah, okay. And then we rename it. We rename the temp file with the copy we made before deleting the file, and then we return true because we have replaced it. Okay, that's all. That all seems fine. I don't think. What do we have in here? Okay. I guess I can add to this. 3.1 directory specification to get files in other folders. Right now, you cannot do that. Packet things. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we can delete that. So, what is going on in this file? So initializing the server doesn't need anything. Another file info thing, that's why you can't have it in the header file. Because as you can see, this is the second file to use that thing, so if it gets declared twice, that's a no-go. LSP, are you gonna No? Okay. File name. Uh, Max file name is in here. So 100. And then Meta info. So that's networking stuff. So that's all networking stuff. And then this is all stuff that's used over and over. So I made them global, so I don't have to keep initializing them, and they're never used more than like once at a time. Like I'm never using num bytes in two different places, so it's not an issue. Um, by default, we have another file struct, and we set its stuff to blank. We get what kind of mode you want to run it in. We do this. The get chars here are for input stuff, because if you don't have that, it carries over the new line and it messes everything up. Yeah, I'm gonna. Hello. Uh, read through file share thing. There. So. And I'm pretty sure my code is pretty descriptive in what's happening, so I'll probably not bother going through and commenting until it actually works. So if you want to run it in server mode, you initialize the server. If you want to run it in client mode, we use the get char to erase the new line from this input. We get the file name, which is here. I guess I should initialize that to a blank string. Just so I don't have junk data. Not that that has ever been an issue, but it's good practice since I've been working with Zig a little bit, and the var equals undefined things. So we get the file name, stick it in there. We pass open file. What does that return? So open file returns a file info struct. So that's it. And then we give it the pointer to the file, which we get in get file name. No. we set it to null. Oh, yeah, we set it to null because we're changing it to the file that we're opening. And then we pass file name. Okay. And then we pass the file descriptor, the file name, the temp file name, which in most cases is just blank, and then whether or not it's temporary to initialize client. And then after we're done, we close the file pointer or file descriptor if it's not already closed. I'll just show what that looks like here. Test, that's fine. So we close the client, but keep the server open. So client side, we always want to free up that file descriptor. So that's why that's there. So I'm gonna be honest, a lot of the C networking stuff is a bit over my head. I'll have to reread Beej's guide. So that's used for yeah, set socket options down here. This is obviously just the IPv6 address. This is the IPv4 address structure. Actually, no, it's sock adder, so it works for both. I think that's used for forking. I don't remember. Don't remember what that is. Setting the hints. What is hints? Right, it's the network info. Then we tell it to use unspecified. So that will be IPv4 or 6, if I recall correctly. Sockstream to use TCP, and then that uses my IP, apparently. I don't, not really sure what's going on there. Get adder info, port, hints, serve info. Yeah, so if you can't connect to the server, do this. Loop through all the results and bind to the first one that works. I guess this would be if you can't connect to the client, since we're in the server code. Loop through all the results and bind to the first one that works. Yeah, I don't. So serve info. Next. So the socket descriptor is going to create a socket. We're going to set the options. Uh, no man page. Don't know what's going on there. Um, da, 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 da. So to manipulate at the API level a sol socket. Um, TCP. Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on here, but then we bind to the port, or I guess we bind to the socket technically, which is an address and a port. Then we free that. I'm not really sure what that is. I think there's like uh somewhere in here. Oh my god. Somewhere in here there's a intermediary socket being made, and then we're freeing that. I don't know. Um if we can't bind, exit it, then we listen. Failing to listen, we exit. Backlog is in here. So we have a total of 10 simultaneous connections available. It could be more. I don't think there's an actual limit on this. The connection request arrives when the queue is full. The client may receive. Yeah, I don't think there's any. There's no limit to that. I just arbitrarily made it 10. Uh, yeah, sure. I don't. Pause it. Gonna be honest, I ripped the SIG action stuff straight from Beej's guide because I have no idea what's going on here. I don't even know what a SIG action is, really. Main except loop. It's a chunky boy. So we get the new descriptor, we accept it with their pointer to their address and a pointer to the size of their address. So that's how we tell if it's IPv4 or 6 here, I'm pretty sure. Um, no idea what this is. Convert IP from binary to text. Okay. So we're converting it to a string, I guess. What is S? Yeah. So we're converting it to a string. And then saying where we got the connection from. We fork the process so that we can keep the listener open and then also handle multiple connections. Oh my god. My voice is not happy. Then we close this because apparently the child doesn't need the listener, which makes sense. It's already connected, doesn't need to listen for more connections. We have a buffer for the file data. $170, $109. I should probably change that to file data buff. Dot, and then we want 61. Yeah. So that's the file data buffer. This by default should be no. And then we need a new pointer because we need to open the file. File size by default is 0, so we haven't opened a file and we haven't received a file size. Return value, please. Number of bytes received or -1 on error. So we just say how many have been received. And then at the end, we put a null string terminator. We probably don't want to do that. Because how am I? So that's just sister network code. That's all fine. Why am I? What? How does the file size? Okay, I need to. Do we reuse buffer somewhere? What I have a file size thing here. Why am I not? So numbytes. And then why do I? Is this just the file name? I feel like that's just the file name. But then it can't be if it's. Huh? Also, these are chars. They should be... No? Da, 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 da. I'm so confused about what's going on here. How is it giving... What it... Okay, I'm gonna come back to that. So here we fork. So in the server code, we fork the process, close the listener. Get and count bytes. I again do not know why I'm setting this. Well, data buff. I guess because we're opening it, so we need it to be a null terminated string. If we can't, do that. Yep. No, that looks kind of bad. Otherwise, if we do have a file pointer, we seek to the end, get the file size, smprintf it to a string, because by default it's a integer. Well, not by default, I made it an integer. Then we send it. Then we get the confirmation of size thing. And then if it's no, we close everything and exit. Does that actually work? Yes. Okay. Close it. Otherwise, we send the file or descriptor, file size, and the data buffer. Then if that fails, we close everything. Blah, blah, blah. And after that function is over, we close everything. Blah, blah, blah. Why do I close this twice? Oh, we close it outside of the fork. So we close the that socket descriptor in the main process. Okay. Now, Holy crap! I've been I've been reading this for like an hour, and there's still one more file. Well, two if you count the header. Um, yeah, I'm really not sure what buff is here because it whatever. So we go through the file name. What is the point of this? Oh, we get the file size. Um, and we have the sister networking code. If you put localhost, it gives the actual IP of localhost because I got sick of typing 127.0.0.1. Again, just network stuff. Like the connections and stuff work, so I'm not too worried about that for now until I have to do the packet things. Um, yeah. And then also just connect to the first socket on the server that works. And then get the IP, print that, print freely intermediary thing. Send the file name with the socket descriptor, the file name, and the size of the file. That doesn't work. Exit. Um, huh? Perm test is equal to string compare buff. Oh, I get, yeah. So if it doesn't, permission, yeah. So if it can't open the file, it sends this to the client. Okay. So that's what that's doing. So if we get this, and then is that just a Boolean then? Why did I not make that a Boolean? What does this return? 0. Okay, so it returns a number. That's why I did not make it a Boolean. Because it has the 3 return values, 0, 1, or yeah, 0 or positive or negative, which obviously does not work in Boolean. So if it's equal to 0, permission denied server side. Remove file name. Right, because the idea is that you have them in different folders. So this would remove the blank file that it created. Da da da. I still don't get how buff is the file size. um, File share, server. Client test, that's fine. Localhost 0. So where do we... Okay, so then we zero out buffer. And then we don't store it. Okay, we're gonna rename this to file size buff. Because I don't think we use it for anything else. So that's that. Which, I mean, that there's a bit of logic scuff, like there's some things that are not like logical, not that I have no idea why they are, and they don't work if they don't, or if they aren't, which I remember. Um, but yeah, I think all the problems are going to be in the actual network.c file. So let's start with looking at the header. That's new stuff I put in like this week. Same with that, as well as these functions. I'll probably have to change them later, but essentially we create a packet. It has a size. Um, I guess this should be, no, I don't want it to be a buffer. I want it to be a number. So I don't really need those. Yeah, okay. So I don't need those, and then this is a void pointer, so I can do more than just text data in the packets, which is, besides for like the program not working, the biggest limitation of the original quote unquote implementation. It only worked with text files, and then a CRC just to make sure that the file hasn't been, or the packet hasn't been mangled in transit. Yeah, there's nothing really special about this stuff. Mm. Maximum, what's the maximum MTU of Wi-Fi? I might make that the data size. Don't care, don't care. Yup. Large packets are more likely to suffer from delays. The more data you can fit in fewer blah blah blah. I'm not on Windows, that's not helpful. So I think for Ethernet it's like 1429 bytes or something. So Cloudflare is usually okay. Yeah, we want to avoid fragmentation, so we want to send the least amount of packets possible. Da, 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 da. I just want an actual number, please. Okay, so I don't care about the path. Ethernet, yeah, 1492. Wi-Fi is 2304. So we'll make this. We also need to account for the size, which size of short. So short is 4 bytes for zepbit. Biggest number you can fit in a short. C. Because if it's 4 bytes, that should be enough. Sixteen bits, which is 2 bytes, 32. So I guess we'll make this an unsigned int, because we'll never have a negative number. Oh my god. And then an unsigned short for this. So we can have lots of possibilities. So we need, how big it? So 2 bytes, and then I think the standard for 64-bit C is 8. Yeah. .32-bit, which is 4 bytes. 4 bytes typically. Okay, so 6, 1492 minus 6. 1492 minus 2 is 1490 minus 4 is 186. So, subtracting size and CRC fields, if I could spell, here from Ethernet MTU of 1492. So that is a side quest I wasn't planning on working on, but I guess in my make file, I could also make it remove temp star. Yay! Remove temp star. And remove anything called test or test.star, I guess. Yeah. I'm just gonna make a random temp thing. E9464AC. Make clean. Cannot remove test.star because there's no, yeah. Okay. So now it's just time to read this. However, I have to go to the bathroom real quick. Alright, let's look at this mess of code, because this is where all the problems are, I'm pretty sure. I'll just comment those out for now, because they don't do anything yet. I don't want to get confused. So if this is IPv4, we return the address of the address. So we have the socket address structure thing here, and then we're accessing the socket internet address field. Otherwise, we return the IPv6 address. Big child handler. Yeah, no idea what the signal handling stuff does. I'm not a sysadmin. I'll have to reread the guide and see if that clears it up at all. I guess here, when I say the guide, that's what I'm talking about. It's Beach's Guide to Network Programming Using Internet Sockets. It is available for free on the Wired. You can also buy a book. Yeah. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about the guide. So we take a socket descriptor, a buffer, and a length. This is fine for being character because it's the file name. So while the total number of bytes is less than bytes sent is less than the length of the name, we send the file name buffer starting from the point of total. So the first time it will be 0, then it will be whatever. Not sure what bytes left. So the length and the flags. Okay. So bytes left is how much is left to write, and then flags. And then we're not passing any flags. Okay. When does this return -1? So once there's no more bytes, this will fail, and we break out. Until then, we increment total by the number of bytes sent here and make bytes left equal to that. and then we hard change the length we pass. Is there a reason to do that? Okay. When does this get used? Surely there's. If I send file, file data, file size. I can't really think of a reason to hard do that, or do that at all, because we return the whether it succeeded or not. We use it down here. File size buff should be no. Okay, well, in that case, I don't think we need that. It's just see what happens here. Save to size of 0 bytes. Is that correct? Yes. And everything appears to be working fine. I don't know why why I had that there. Okay, send file name. So size, do we use this anywhere else? No. And that's a different function. They are independent of each other. Yeah, we don't use that anywhere else. So That can stay commented out. I don't know why I had that. An hour 24. Okay, that's not too bad. So in the send file, so if you couldn't tell by the what am I doing? Oh my god, okay. It has to actually have, I believe it's at least one character for this to happen. But if we LL, hello? Test is 9 bytes currently. 9? What? What? How is this 9 bytes? Oh, no, 1488, right? So let's redo this. So it's 2 bytes. The A and the new line. Or the null terminator, I guess, technically. So if we 2 bytes, correct. Byte sent, 1486. I don't know why there's a space here. I can't get rid of it. I tried. So now if we LL, yeah, it's just a bunch of random garbage data, right? So the reason I brought that up is because the plan with the packets is, this one might actually be better to draw out. Let's see here. So you have annoying. So why did I, what? So you have your size, the data, wonderful mouse drawing as always, and then the CRC. So currently we don't have that, we just send the data. And it goes boop boop to the client. And this results in the file we send. So file sent size will always be equal to the file size plus I really should just be typing this out. The max data size, which in this case is 1486. Um, So the hope is by utilizing this, we will instead get just the file sent size. Because we will be reading the packet size, amount of data in packet, and then stopping reading data at that point. So by reading the packet size, we can stop it from adding the, where did that go? We can stop it from adding the maximum data size because we just read through data this many bytes. Theoretically, that should do this. I haven't implemented it yet, obviously, so who knows, but that is the plan, because somewhere in here I have no 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 in here so this always happens if it's like if there's an off by 1 here, greater, it will send another packet, so that will be plus equal 1486. And then if I make this equal to it, I'll just show you. But it just oh, that did something way different than I was expecting. Um, that's weird. Okay, well, in the past, it would oh yeah, I forgot to. No, I didn't. It would send everything except the last byte or whatever, which is arguably worse. Like if you have extra data, that's fine. You can get rid of that, but you can't do anything if you're missing data. So I'm fairly certain it's these two functions that are making everything not work. And I don't know why. So I think I'm gonna have to essentially rewrite them because I'm gonna have to implement the packet stuff anyway, which, since these take string buffers, will not really work. So I'll end up having to rewrite them anyway, but yeah. So this file is the culprit, I'm pretty sure. I just don't know how to fix it. So we open the file. We go to the start of the file. We read the file. And then if it takes more than one call, we keep doing that until it's that might be an issue. We're doing a double read here. So I think I think we can do that. So we read it and then we read it outside of the while loop, so we're not doing the double read. And then while byte sent is that if amount read is less than or does not equal the file size, that should be less than or equal to the file size. We read more and check if the copy is that, then we send, and then blah blah blah. And then I do have a little like progress bar type thing for bigger files. I can do that with the tags thing. Oh. But yeah, you can see that here. Well, that would be why that stuff was in there. How big is buffer? Max data size. So I guess here we can do max data size minus size of buffer. No, that's gonna be we'll read the file size minus, no, we want, how is this gonna work? We want to read, okay. So file size, so if it's greater, than the max data size, we want amount read to be equal to file size minus max data size. No, we want to read size of buffer. Otherwise, I'm just gonna yoink that. Otherwise, we want to read max data size minus the file size. Why is that not assignable? Okay, I guess we're just making this an if. So if it's greater than the maximum data size, we will read the size of the buffer. Otherwise, we're going to read, so when it's less than the size of the maximum, we're going to read the maximum minus the data size, which should be the exact file size. And if that fails, and then if it's less than the file size, we're going to read the size of the buffer minus 1. I guess this should also be minus 1 then. And then this stuff should be able to go here. Actually, no, since I'm not working, I don't plan on working with strings purely anymore. I can get rid of that. And then if it fails, do that. And then if it's less than or equal to file size, we read more. And then we copy it. And if those are the same, it failed to read anything. And then byte sent. Yeah. I'm gonna get rid of those. That's annoying. So now if we do that, let me just double check that logically. So if it's greater than, we read a whole buffer. Otherwise, we read file size. Theoretically, fine, I'll put that stuff back in here. Failed to send file. Error reading rest of file. Error reading rest of file. Byte sent was still humongous. Why? So if it's greater than max data set, it's greater than or equal to we read a buffer. Otherwise, we read the file size. And then we check if we can't. Still sending the whole thing. Oh my god. Okay. So none of that actually made a difference. Let's just the yeah, let's just go back to how it was before. Uh, yeah. So anyway, those were the two things I suspect are causing that to happen. Uh, um, wrong one. So we did that. And I'm kinda out of time, actually. That is most unfortunate. Um, yeah. Okay. Well, with that very productive use of time, I am going to depart. As always, if you are lurking, thanks for lurking. If not, well, you're not here to hear this, so it doesn't matter. Um, bye bye.